What up, everybody? The fourth season 3, episode 6 trailer shows Marquez Cartel leader Roberto Ortega on the phone in jail visitation, telling somebody that Tommy Egan dies tomorrow. The trailer also shows a clip of Miguel talking to his number 2, Cruz, and telling him that Tommy Egan will soon be a distant memory. This is because Miguel has set up a Sunday dinner for him, Tommy, and Mireya to go out to eat when he plans to somehow hand Tommy over to Ortega and the Marquez Cartel. But a big question that I have is, how does Miguel intend on doing this without putting his sister Mireya at risk? Another question is, does this mean that Roberto Ortega is going to be getting released from jail in episode 6? Keeping in mind, Miguel already tried hiring a hitter named Mohit to take Tommy out, but Ortega had his lawyer Chan pay Mohit not to do the hit. And when Miguel and Cruz snatched up Mohit to get in contact with Ortega, who told him not to do the hit, Ortega told Miguel that the reason why he stopped the hit on Egan is because he wants Tommy to be his kill. So with Miguel and Ortega both talking about taking Tommy out in the trailer, does this mean that Ortega gets released? It definitely would make sense that he should be getting released sometime soon, now that his co-defendants are both dead, Claudia and Mirkovich. So the feds won't have anybody to testify against him, not to mention that Sang got the money and drugs thrown out. So at this point, it doesn't look like Stacy has much of a case, and Ortega will most likely end up walking. But we also know from the season 3 promos that Tommy, Mireya, and Miguel will all survive this episode. So something's going to go wrong in regards to this hit. And that's because at this Sunday dinner, Miguel will most likely have a change of heart when he finds out that Mireya is pregnant with Tommy's child. And once he finds that out, he'll do something to stop Tommy from getting taken out by Roberto Ortega and the Marquez Cartel. And that will end up causing another beef between Miguel and his gang, the Insane Princes, and Ortega and the Marquez Cartel. And with that said, also keep in mind that the season 3 promos shows Miguel getting attacked, and also the same person who it shows attacking Miguel, putting him in a chokehold. And this character who attacks Miguel hasn't been introduced to the storyline yet, so that could potentially be someone from the Marquez Cartel coming for Miguel for double-crossing Ortega and not handing Tommy over to him like he said he would. And we also know from the season 3 promos that a hitter is going to come for Mireya and she'll run them over. So this could also have something to do with the Marquez Cartel potentially coming for Mireya after they're double-crossed by Miguel. But there's also a chance that the clip of Mireya running someone over could be a misdirection, and the man could have actually been trying to take out Tommy after the dinner, and Mireya could run this man over to save Tommy, and the cartel could still blame Miguel anyway for not handing Tommy over to them. But another problem for Ortega and the Marquez Cartel, if they get into a beef with Miguel, is that they weren't only hoping to work with Miguel to take out Tommy, they also wanted Miguel to be distro for their cartel in Chicago and start getting his product from them instead of Che. So if Miguel double crosses them and doesn't end up working with them, but keeps doing business with Che, this is also going to make it harder for the Marquez Cartel to plant their flag in Chicago at all, because as they were originally supposed to be doing business with the Serbs, but once they got arrested, the cartel was who took Mirkovich out. So now the cartel has problems with the Serbs because of that. And then if they were to make an enemy with Miguel, then he would also be out the picture. And prior to CBI connecting with Che, Miguel and the Serbs were the two biggest connects in the city. But now CBI's become the biggest connect in the city, and they're at war with the Marquez Cartel. So it seems like the Marquez Cartel are gonna have a hard time planting their flag, as they're stacking up more enemies than Tommy. But with that said, Ortega's beef is primarily with Tommy more than it is with CBI. So because of that, at some point, once Tommy becomes a lone wolf and is on the outside looking in when it comes to CBI and the coalition, if things were to ever go wrong between CBI and Che, I wouldn't be surprised if Ortega and the Marquez Cartel end up working with CBI. Another crew to keep an eye on is Vic Flynn's crew, the Northside Irish. The Northside is prime territory that Vic is basically in control of. And once things go left between him and Tommy and CBI as a whole, especially after in episode 6 when Vic's crew takes back the bars from the Albanians, Vic will also be looking for a new connect. And Vic could also end up connecting with Ortega and the Marquez Cartel, needing a product. Because even though Walter didn't mess with powder and only sold pills, since Walter's death, Vic connected with CBI and has flooded the north side with powder. And as far as Walter's pill connect, we know that Claudia maintained a relationship with the connect, but I don't think Vic did. And I don't think he can run that front that they were using in season 1 by himself either. So once Vic and the Northside Irish split from CBI, they'll also need a plug to keep the money coming in. And there's also the fact that a couple episodes ago, the feds were talking about all the Fetty-related deaths and mentioned a spike of deaths on the north side, Vic Flynn's territory. So it seems like someone on the north side is already potentially linked to the Marquez Cartel. But when it comes to Ortega getting released and being back on the streets, other than moving forward and trying to plant the Marquez Cartel flag in Chicago, this could also be a dangerous time for Ortega, because just like Claudia, that could give Tommy opportunity to get to Ortega. Either though it seems like Tommy's going to have a lot to worry about himself in the second half of the season, finding out Mireya is pregnant, splitting up with Diamond and CBI, and also JP getting killed. So luckily for Ortega, taking him out might not be at the top of Tommy's priorities, unless Ortega and the cartel is who takes out JP, or they come for Mireya. And when it comes to cartel bosses, we already know they don't have a history of surviving in power, as we've seen Lobos and the Jimenez all getting taken off the board. And either though Tommy didn't pull the trigger on none of those kills himself, he was directly involved in the deaths of Lobos and Alicia Jimenez, and they wouldn't have been taken out if it wasn't for Tommy. Those bosses were taken out by Ghost, Kanan, and Jason Mitchell. So could we potentially see Tommy take out Ortega next? But as we currently have two cartel bosses in the picture, Che and Ortega, I also think it's likely that one of them survive and make it into Power Legacy. And with that said, I also wonder if either the Estrada or Marquez cartel is connected to Tariq's connect, Chinadu. Keeping in mind how in OG Power, Tommy was getting product from the Serbs, only for it to be revealed in Season 2 of Force that they had been supplied by the Estrada cartel for the last 25 years. So ultimately, the Estrada cartel was Jason Mitchell's connect, and also keeping in mind he was originally stationed out of Chicago. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.